want you guys to picture this. It's April 24th, day one of the NFL draft. You've been watching for a couple of hours, and as you keep watching, you've started to realize that your favorite prospects are no longer on the board. And so you're watching the Texans get on the clock. They're sitting there at 25, and you're thinking to yourself, who the hell are the Houston Texans going to draft? That's what this video is going to be. It's kind of going to be like a worst case scenario, day of the draft. What do we do? I'm going to talk about 4 prospects I think can fill that gap. So if you like this type of content, you like talking about the Texans daily, don't forget to like and subscribe for more daily Texans content because we got a lot coming for you guys. But let's start talking about these late options. Again, 25th overall options that the Texans might be able to have if they start losing out on some prospects. And so I really kind of just want to illustrate what I'm talking about. So in the teal color, you have all the weapons that I think the Texans could benefit using at 25. And then in the yellow, you have the offensive linemen. So Tyler Warren, Matthew Golden, Emeka Ibuka, Ted McMillan, Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, and Amarian Hampton all go before 25. Now let's start with the offensive linemen. Tyler Booker's gone, Kelvin Banks is gone, Will Campbell, Josh Simmons, and Armand Membo are all gone. So this to me is kind of the worst case scenario. And don't, in the comments get all mad that I put Kenneth Grant going to the Broncos or whatever. I tried to make it somewhat reasonable. There's not too many reaches. And focus less on like where the player went and more on the fact that they're just not going to be available at 25. So again, this to me, or some version of this draft, kind of resembles like the worst possible scenario for the Houston Texans. But let's really quick talk about what I kind of would have done to prevent this scenario before we actually get into the prospects themselves. So look, the first thing is if you're sitting at pick 18 and Emeka Ibuka has been selected, and all of a sudden you're realizing Ted McMillan is still on the board at pick 19. If you're the Houston Texans, I think you trade up. I think trading up for Ted McMillan makes a lot of sense. If he falls really anywhere from like the 15 to the 18 range, I think any earlier than that, you're going to have to start giving up a lot of assets. You might not want to do that. But if Ted McMillan slides because of the recent conversation, his stock has been declining a little bit, go ahead and trade up for Ted McMillan. Also, in this situation, I would really think the Texans would benefit from trading back. With trading back, you need another team that wants to trade up. So you have to be dependent on someone else. It's a lot easier to do on paper on a mock draft than it is on draft day. But still, I think the optimal solution, obviously, in this situation with all these players up here that have gone, is to trade back. Otherwise, you kind of have to do what the other solutions are. And that's where I kind of want to talk about the options, the only options in my opinion. So these are all listed on PFF. I've been using PFF's mock draft rating, which I think is pretty accurate. It's one of my favorites to use. I have these guys kind of ranked around the same as PFF does. Although Ayomanor and Bech, I think it's a little closer. 3 spots difference, not going to kill him on that. But I do want to talk about these prospects because I could see this happening. I could see the Texans being a little unlucky in how the draft board falls out. And now you have to start thinking about maybe reaching slightly on a guy that might have been a high day 2 pick or a really late day 1 pick. And at 25, you're having to choose. So let's start talking about these prospects, and let's start talking about Gray Zabel. So Gray Zabel, 6'6", 312 pounds, played at NDSU, which is North Dakota State University. He's a center and guard prospect. I know the conversation is a lot of people want to see him at the guard spot, which means the Texans have 2 guards. They have Jarrett Patterson, they have Juice Scruggs, but he's also a guard prospect as well, not really a tackle guy. But with Gray Zabel, let's start getting into the draft report. Obviously the big thing is going to be North Dakota State University. I don't really know how we feel about the competition that he played against with. But one thing I will say is his production score was 91, which is first among tackles. So among all the tackles, he had the highest production score. And if you're telling me you're playing at NDSU, you better have a high production score. So at least he has that going for him. It's like he couldn't have been more productive among the other tackles according to the Combine's kind of analytics. So I like seeing that. If he would have been like the 7th most productive tackle, we would have started having some questions and some concerns. But like I said, number one most productive tackle. So he has great athleticism, Gray Zabel does. He also plays extremely hard. He has great IQ for every spot on the offensive line because he's pretty much played everywhere on the offensive line at NDSU. He was put in a lot of different positions. He played left tackle most recently. I think he's a 5 year senior, or I'm pretty sure he's a 5 year senior. And across his time, he's played right tackle, guards, center, played everything. At the Senior Bowl, he also played center and was asked to take a lot of snaps at center as well. He was the biggest riser at the Senior Bowl. He was holding his ground against pretty much every edge prospect at the Senior Bowl. Like, I don't think he lost a rep. Great athleticism, plays extremely hard, also has great IQ. And I think he's more of a day one starter. The biggest knock with Gray Zabel is going to be, does the competition actually translate? That's going to be the biggest knock. I think he has the mindset. I think he has the physical traits. I think he can be more of a day one starter. Again, the biggest knock is going to be that competition. But now let's talk about the other offensive line prospect where we kind of get a little bit into the weeds at 25 overall, but I could see the Texans doing it. That's Josh Conerly Jr. from Oregon, 6'5", 311 pounds. He is a tackle guard prospect. I do think he's more of a tackle, though. And I think the consensus is he's more of a tackle. Now, kind of the opposite of Zabel, Conerly's younger. He's a true junior. So he spent 3 years in college at Oregon, played really well for Oregon. What I liked about Conerly is he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, and it's very obvious to see why he was a 5-star recruit. Extremely athletic, extremely explosive. He plays very hard. Another thing about Conerly is he was coached up really well at Oregon, has great technique. He can win with his mind. Like he knows when to punch guys, when to come off, and then when to re-engage. He's not someone who just tries to latch on and then gets overpowered or misses the block. Like, he's very active with his hands, and he knows how to throw the right punches at the offensive tackle spot. He also has some really great traits, really great ability to just be on an island and win a one-on-one. Now, when we start talking about kind of some of the knocks on Conerly, it would be the strength in his lower half. At the Senior Bowl, there was a clip that kind of went viral of Josh Conerly just getting absolutely bulldozed by an edge rusher. I forget his name, but he got steamrolled, and it kind of made the rounds. You can look it up on YouTube. That might have left a bad taste in people's mouths. The other thing with Conerly is he's not really a day one kind of a guy, in my opinion. I don't think he's as much of a day one plug and play as Gray Zabel is. I think he's going to take some time, and I don't know if the Texans have that time for Conerly, but I guess we will find out one way or another. So, as I try to adjust this for you guys. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about Elic Ayomanor. So look, Elic, 6'2", 206 pounds, ran a 4.44 40-yard dash, and that's what I like to see at that size. Not a great production score, but guess what? He didn't play for a very productive offense at Stanford, so you can't really hold that against him. Let's talk about Elic Ayomanor. Of all the receivers in this draft, I do think Elic is probably the one that sneaks into the first round. I think he's kind of the highest day two kind of a grade of a receiver, in my opinion. And the reasons for that, he's really smart in how he approaches the game. He can win with releases and with his release packages. It's there. He knows how to attack leverages, and he's young. It's not like he's some vet who's been in college for 5 years. Like, he's a younger guy. 64 receptions, 860 yards, 6 touchdowns. Again, not playing for the best offense in Stanford. I believe his quarterback was a sophomore. One thing I'll say about Elic is he's not a great contested catch guy for his size, which is a tiny red flag. And he also did have a lot of concentration drops, and you don't really like to see that either. You don't like to see guys dropping the football. Obviously, the long speed's not amazing for a receiver. He's 6'2", 206. Like, he's not going to kill you with the lateral, the quick cuts, kind of the quick, speedy guy. But he isn't as slow, again, look at the 40, as his size might dictate. The other thing I'll say about Elic is he did have an amazing standout game where he pretty much got the best of Travis Hunter when Stanford played Colorado. He was matched up against Travis Hunter a majority of the game, and he had a day. I don't remember the exact stats, but he went off against Travis Hunter in that Stanford, Colorado game. So he's got that riding for him. And, I believe Travis Hunter is one of the most talented prospects, I've ever seen. I think we've ever seen as a whole. So he's got that going for him as well. But now let's talk about the other receiver that I do think the Texans could kind of fill that gap in at that awkward spot with pick 25, and that is Jack Bech. Jack Bech is 6'1", 214 pounds, so he's around the same size as Elic. Now, the 40 time's not available. He didn't run it. At least I couldn't find it. And I think there's a reason for that. I think Bech was very tactical in why he did that. Let's start talking about him, though. This was definitely his breakout season. He was an LSU transfer, played at TCU last year and had that breakout year. 62 catches, over 1,000 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Now, the thing about Jack Bech is he's one of the highest floor receivers in this draft. I have him as the second highest floor receiver in this draft behind Emeka Egbuka. Jack Bech you know exactly what you're getting with Jack Bech. You don't have to worry about him. He's a guy that is going to produce for you. Now, why do I say that? I say that because unlike Elic Ayomanor, he catches everything. He catches deep fades, he catches go balls, he catches across the middle of the field, he catches quick outs, he catches flag routes, he catches everything. You throw the ball to Jack Bech, he will catch it. He has amazing hands. Debated playing, being a smaller tight end, ended up playing receiver. He's a great receiver, but he blocks like a tight end, and that is kind of where that conversation happened. His size and just he blocks like a tight end. He's a great blocker. Ayomanor is also a really good physical blocker as well. Now, what are kind of some negatives about Jack Bech? Well, he doesn't really have the long speed. He's not as much of an athlete as Ayomanor, and we know those 40s, those scouts love their 40s, and I do too. Not a great long speed guy. I will say, though, he also has a great contested catch rate, so that's kind of a positive he has on Ayomanor. Better catch rate. So with Bech, my thing with Bech is he probably has the higher floor than Ayomanor, but Ayomanor he's got a lot of traits and a lot of just built-in athleticism that really makes you want to think about Ayomanor over Bech. But I'll leave that, debate and conversation kind of up to you guys. So that's pretty much what I have for this video. Again, kind of going through a situation where a lot of the top prospects get taken off the board and the Texans have to start thinking about some other guys to take at 25. But let me know what you guys think. Are there any other names you could see at 25? Maybe like a Donovan Jackson, or I don't know, a different Trey Harris, a different receiver you'd want to see at 25. Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one, man. Peace out.